I can only describe what I'm about to say as rubbish pub knowledge, but I was once told that if you try something once, you can engage with about 80% of all the total conversations people might have about that topic. Absolutely zero scientific sources for that, but I have applied it to my watch collecting with some success in the past. Essentially, the idea that I've put forward on the channel before is that by trying a cheap homage, you can essentially try a good amount of the real experience without a great deal of financial risk. This was a strategy I've personally used for most of my big purchases to make sure that I'm going to be happy with them. However, recently I've tried that with a 7 Friday homage, and my word, it was bad. Having already had that experience, I really do not know what I was thinking with the subject of this video, and it's something that I definitely need to remember and learn from moving forwards. So join me, if you will, to discuss whether or not I'm wrong about my idea of try before you buy. Do I need to eat my words? Let's get into the video and find out. I think it's probably best to begin by discussing a little bit of context in order to frame the video properly. While I have bought a number of low budget pieces to review on the channel over the past 10 months or so, behind the scenes I have also been trying to put some money aside for a more sizable, at least by my standards, purchase in 2025. I've discussed the 3 things on my hit list a number of times, but this video won't make much sense unless I bring them up here. I am torn between a Citizen Washi dial, a Cartier de Santos, and a Grand Seiko spring drive model. I will immediately say that this is not supposed to be any kind of flex, and I couldn't possibly hope to afford any of these at recommended retail price. I'm talking strictly second hand here. Of the 3, the de Santos is arguably the most expensive option, given that I'd be looking at the cheaper end of the spring drive models. With that said, now I hope it makes a little more sense as to why I thought to try out a homage to see what I thought of it. Here's the thing, this is definitely not the homage to buy, and you can probably tell that by the name of the, and I say this in inverted commas, brand, Luo Linggongju. Now, I've said it once already, and I flagged it in the title, but I really should know better. However, this channel is called Impulsive Watches for a reason, and sometimes I can't help but act without really thinking things through properly. It's safe to say we're not exactly starting this video at a strong ebb. We've got a watch brand I can barely pronounce to deal with, and I can't even give much of a justification as to why I bought such a thing. I guess that does beg the question though, is it as bad as it sounds, and is it remotely useful as a try before you buy piece? Does that idea even really work here? Well, let's unpack all of that and discuss. First of all, the watch itself. It's a very, very, very pale comparison to the de Santos, and isn't going to fool anyone if that was the objective. The date complication at 3 is a dead giveaway, as the de Santos range traditionally features it at 6, if at all. I imagine this is down to a lack of flexibility in the movement used, but I'm going to discuss that movement more later on. The print work on the dial is probably the best feature of the entire watch. It's slightly raised and neatly done. There is no cabochon at the end of the crown. Of course, whatever this would have been substituted with would have been poor quality anyway, but it does feel like a signature part of the model that is missing. When it comes to build quality, this is a solid brick of a watch. There is nothing remotely flimsy about it. There are, however, 2 very obvious indicators that this is not a high quality item. The first is the groove around the outside of the bezel. This is just about wide enough to fit a fingernail into, and will catch onto clothing fibres and other debris. The other dead giveaway are the hands, in particular the second hand. These have clearly been painted rather than heat treated. In honesty, you could have told this from the tone of the hands anyway, but a close look at that second hand on my model in particular reveals that part of the paintwork has chipped away at some point. One thing I really want to be conscious of moving forwards is making use of all the tools at my disposal. I think that largely comes down to my process when making these videos. I always want to try and film outside. It's an excuse for me to get out and about and explore, and I think it makes each review feel a little different, and doesn't seem to be very commonly done in the watch reviewing world. However, when you factor in travel, scripting, and trying to stick to some kind of self-imposed release schedule, suddenly big gaps open up between filming a watch and releasing a review, and in that time I often forget about macro shots, my time grapher, or even just basic measurement shots. I can't promise to be remotely consistent from this point onwards, as I am just scatterbrained, but I did at least remember all of these factors for today. Starting with the measurements. Getting an accurate set of dimensions here is very difficult because of the curved nature of the watch, but at its centre it is 13.2mm thick. For comparison, the DeSantos large watch model is 9.38mm thick, and as you might expect, there is a lack of precision engineering in the Homage, but a good portion of that extra thickness does seem to be coming from a deep dial and deep caseback. The watch measures in at 40mm across, excluding the crown and its guards, which does roughly match up to the DeSantos large model, but you do have to remember that square model diameters are going to wear larger than their circular counterparts. Finally, the lug-to-lug, which comes in at 51mm, considerably larger than the DeSantos large at 47.5mm. The result of all of this is a pretty hefty watch to wear. Now, I don't actually own an accurate scale, and the listing for the piece doesn't tell me anything at all, but I will say that comparatively this weighs more on a rubber strap than anything else I own that isn't on a metal bracelet. When it comes to my idea of try before you buy, this really is not much of a substitute, despite its best efforts to be a homage. On to the movement. It is an automatic, but that is literally all that I can tell you. There is nothing in the listing once again, and I don't profess to be an expert in movements to the point where I could accurately tell you what it is by eye alone, especially here where the crystal used for the caseback actually makes the movement quite hard to see. I'm also definitely not an expert with the time grapher. In fact, this is only the second time I've attempted to use mine. I do know that what we're looking for is essentially as flat a line as possible on the readout. To be honest, I don't think I need to be an expert, and you don't either, to look at these readings and work out what you could already have guessed: this movement is abysmal. I've watched a fair few watch reviews featuring a time grapher, and I've literally never seen anything like it. I think a lesson can be learnt from this though. If you're buying an automatic or indeed manual watch and the listing doesn't tell you what the movement is, just don't go there. You'd genuinely be better off drawing a DeSantos on your arm with a biro. At least that would tell you the time accurately twice a day. Reflecting back on the title of this video, I think the jury is very much out on my idea of try before you buy. The first couple of times I utilised it with my Speedmaster and Datejust, I was actually very surprised by the quality of the homages and loved the real things when I finally saved enough to afford them. Here though, I really should have known better. A number of people have recommended the Sander tank models. I'm not too sure if there is a better DeSantos homage out there though, but there surely has to be. This one was really subpar. It certainly hasn't done anything to enamour me with the idea of getting the real thing, but I think it would be really harsh to read anything into that. As it stands, there have been 2 hits with Try Before You Buy and 2 abject failures, so I guess I will defer that judgment on my idea until I try it out again with some kind of tiebreaker, whatever that may be. Definitely a few lessons learned from this experience though. As ever, thank you for your time. If you've enjoyed what you've seen or found it informative, consider dropping the video a like and subscribing for more content like this in future.